Hey, good morning to those of you showing up early and on time. Good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to talk about not just Navy Gold Coast, but conferences and how to have success with conferences. But before we do, I did want to just share a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time as a way to say thank you. And so my tip for you today, if you haven't read this book, read a book called The 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. I've been reading this thing. The first time I read it was in 1997. I sign it whenever I read it, just to kind of remind myself to keep tracking of it. But 1997, when I was in the Army and coming out, that's when a lot of us got introduced to the 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And I actually keep this card. My tip is actually not about one particular habit. It's about the 7 habits. And they are, if you don't know what they are, they're be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek first to understand, then to be understood, synergy, and sharpen the saw. So these are the 7 habits. But I keep this card with me. And every week I'm trying to focus on one of these habits. I just look at it, I remind myself of the principles around the habit, and then I move forward. We sometimes get caught up with the busy work of what we're doing. Literally, I'm doing this training, right? We're so busy through the day. But sometimes at the beginning of a week, maybe Sunday, if you will, you plan that out and it filters into not just your professional life, but your personal life as well. And these habits are just so time tested. They're what we call evergreen habits, if you will, foundational habits. And so I encourage you to do that. That's just a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate that you do that. Okay, let me go ahead and get going with today's training. We got a lot of stuff to do and 30 minutes to do it in. There's this great line about accomplishments, right? When you think about great accomplishments out there, some people make it happen, some people watch it happen, and some people ask what happened. And in government contracting and success, it's kind of the same thing, right? If you think about whether you're going to have success down there, you can make your success happen. You can watch success happen for others, or you can say, what happened? I went to the conference and nothing happened, right? And part of it is your how you look at it. There's different conferences you can go to. So there's a conference called South by Southwest, or a Tony Robbins conference, if you know that name. These are conferences you would go to that are for fun. You're going down there, you're just hanging out, you're really just getting the vibes, right? You're really just trying to build up the energy and motivation, et cetera. And then there's events like the Air Force event or Navy Gold Coast, which we're going to talk about today. Those are just work. I mean, that's their whole purpose, is work. We'll talk about it in a minute about work, but it's really important to understand the difference. One, you can go down there and just let it happen to you and experience it. South by Southwest, it's just so exciting. And another is to go down there for a particular purpose. I signed up and paid for this conference. There's a purpose. There's this line out there about planning, right? It says, failing to plan is planning to fail. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I don't want you to just go to a conference. I want you to sit there and go with a purpose. If you just go to a conference, a federal conference, a government contracting conference, without any kind of plan, I think that's kind of irresponsible. It certainly is planning to fail compared to really driving your success. These conferences are very expensive as well for you or for the company if you're in a company. And it's important for you to understand, how much am I spending? How much is this costing our company? And what's our ROI? How can we really push that ROI to 10x the ROI, right? If you spent $1,000 or $3,000 to get down there, how do we really take it to the next level? And that's what we're going to talk about. I'll give you some guidance today in our training. And as I talk about steps I take to guarantee success at a government conference, I'll give you tips on how you can be successful down there. I'm going to break down today's training into 3 sections. First thing I want to talk about, when I look at preparing for a federal conference or government contracting conference, I want to prepare a couple of weeks in advance of the conference. There's a lot of activity we can do. So I'm going to show you what I do. The next thing is at the conference, I want you to be able to maximize your chances for success at the conference. And I want you to maximize your time at that event, move with a purpose, if you will. And then the last thing I want to give you is just some really helpful tips if you don't go to the conference, right? Today, I'm going to use Navy Gold Coast, which is out in San Diego. I'm going to use that as the example. But what if you're not going? You can take total advantage of the fact that the conference is happening And I'm going to describe what you can do to have success in there. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm co-founder of GovCon in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market, and I provide you an opportunity to network with others who are in the federal market, government contractors just like you. Sometimes even buyers are in the training. So make sure you're engaging with people in chat. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for your company. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, Government Contracting Success Newsletter. It's the largest federal contracting newsletter on LinkedIn by far. It's easily double the size of others that are out there. And I've noticed the reason we keep growing is because we keep providing stuff that is of value to you. An example of one of the most recent ones is we tell you how to get into HHS and register really quick so you're where those buyers are looking when they want to find a company like you. So all of our content is around that same caliber. I looked back at 2-3-year-old issues, and none of them are out of date. You can go back and read the old ones, and they're still relevant today. The guidance is still relevant because we don't really provide guidance that only lasts like a week or 2 weeks. I use a different venue for that. The other thing is make sure you register for tomorrow's training. It's on government, it's on networking on LinkedIn, but for government contractors, right? And so I really want to give you tips on how can you engage federal buyers and other teammates on LinkedIn to begin to really build a strong network that's there for you. Make sure you register. We had over 100 people, I think, register for today's training. I think we've got over 100 people already for tomorrow's training, but make sure you get in there. It's a great way to network even before you go to the event. Last thing I want to point out is I just want to say congratulations to the companies that are in the 100 Club. We have 4 companies. I'm highlighting them a little bit, but hopefully they're in training and they'll track what I'm doing. These 4 companies, it's interesting the way we keep the 100 Club. By the way, if you don't know what that is, the 100 Club is for your federal visibility score that we have created on GovCon in a Box. It is basically saying how visible are we to federal buyers. We're not creating any new data. We're looking at what you already do and say, this is how visible you are or you are not. And so out of 360,000 companies that are currently in DSBS, only 24 have a perfect 100 score. And in fact, 4 of them dropped since yesterday from 100 to 98. And the reason is because you need to go back in and update your profile on a regular basis so it doesn't get close to expiring. And so when I determined the calculation, I said, if you haven't registered or if you haven't updated your profile every 6 months, then I'm going to dock you by 2 points. And the whole point is to encourage you to go back and keep your profile up to date. This is where hundreds of thousands of buyers might come find you. You should make sure it's up to date every 6 months. It takes 15 minutes. But I'll change it a little bit. I think I'm going to change it from 6 months to 9 months, that if you've updated it in the last 9 months, you'll get full points for it. But really, your profile expires after a year. And so I'm just trying to kickstart you to go, hey, don't forget about it. We literally have had people who've used our tool, found out they're expired. When you're expired, you cannot win a contract. So this is not some casual thing I'm saying to you. It is one of those things that we sometimes forget because it is so small. SAM registration, DSBS. Just put it on your calendar. Go back to DSBS and SAM on your own and update it. You don't need me or anybody else to do that. So these companies, though, we're going to work with you, get you right back on the 100 Club tomorrow. And then I'll put you at the bottom so we highlight you again. All right, so let's dive into preparing 2 weeks out from a conference. When you're attending a federal government or federal market conference like Navy Gold Coast is coming up in 2 weeks, when you attend a conference like that, you want to make sure you're preparing several weeks out in advance to achieve success. Like I mentioned before, it's important that you set up a plan so you're not going to fail from a lack of planning. And so one of the first things I want you to do is determine what is your purpose or goal for going to the conference. Why did you sign up for this conference? What are you hoping to get out of it? You need to write that down. That is our objective from this conference. I want to make sure I measure that after the fact to make sure that I got the objective or hit the goal that I was looking for. But it also drives all my preparation. The next 2 are really important, and I'll talk about them, then I'll show you. But review a list of the speakers at the event you're going to. I'm going to show you how to do that, but you review a list of the speakers and you pick the ones you want to meet. Do the same thing with exhibitors. You might want to meet all of them, And if that's the case, that's fine. But then you want to rack and stack them. And I think I'll talk about that later. But look at the list of exhibitors, whoever's got a booth, and go, who do I really want to meet? The next tip for you, and I'll slow a little bit on this because I'm going to go back over and actually let me pause for 1 second and go show you what I'm talking about. So hopefully you can see my screen. I'm going to watch this for 1 second. I'm going to go in Navy Gold Coast. This is their conference. It's coming up in 2 weeks or the 19th, whatever that is, right? And I'm going to show you very quickly how I do exactly what I just said, where I go in, I look at the speakers, and I look at the exhibitors. So if I look at I look at the program, I can see sessions and speakers. So I'm going to click on this, and in here, I'm able to see, and for me, this is a kind of a fun view where I just start scrolling down, and I'll show you that. Hey, Voltron, they're AI-powered proposal writing right there. They're sponsoring this conference, apparently. But I can come in and begin to look at all of these events, and this is a pretty smooth way for me to do it because I can come down and see things like cadence, workforce, supply chain. That's not something I'm interested in, but I can see these people, right? And as I just keep scrolling, I'm going to go down a little farther until it starts like here, cyber track, cyber threat analysis. This is the FBI office if you're trying to get there. This is how you begin to identify people. Here from DCAA is Alicia Treiber. I'm sorry, I'm messing it up, but I can look and go, do I want to get into DCAA? Right? Is that somebody I might want to meet with? And now I've got their name and number, and I'm putting that down. And for two reasons. One is when I'm planning my event to go, I want to know, do I want to meet her right away? Is she my second tier contact? And you can do the same thing coming down, right? So as you start going down, you start finding more people like this guy here, a business development director at NSA. These guys are pushing out tools. NSA is in DOD, and they're really trying to push cybersecurity. Let me come back up. So one way to look at speakers is through the agenda. The other is you can just come here, and I think they have the full speaker list right there. And so here, I just go through everybody. I don't search for people. I look at every single person. I go, oh, look at that, Military Sea Lift Command. I want to find out who Jackie is. Maybe I want to go connect. She's the Office of Small Business Professionals, or excuse me, Office of Small Business Programs. It's basically, she's the OSDBU for the Military Sea Lift Command. And the same thing, I come down, I see Jose, and I'm like, no, I'm not interested in meeting somebody from El Camino College. I'm federal, and I'm looking for Navy, right? And so you go through this, but you find a ton of people. And I'll come back and talk about what to do, but the second thing to do. But the first thing is I just say, who do I want to meet with? Okay, let me come back to home really quick. And so I said, looking at speakers, let me get rid of that guy. Speakers, now I can come over here and I can say, let me see exhibitor lists, right? I'm going to look at an exhibitor list. And in here, I'm just going to start looking at these folks. And if I don't know what they're doing, I can switch over. But one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and start finding, all right, here's Army, right? If I come down, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. BAE Systems, I know they're large. I know we'd love to meet with them. So I'm going to hit them. I'm not interested in Bank of America business banking or whatever. And so I keep coming down. There's Bain Group. They're in our community here. But you start coming down, right? You see all these people, Boeing, Booz Allen. I'll put them at the top of my list if I'm trying to get in there. But what I want to do is look at all these people. Let me come back to home. What I want to do is review the list of speakers, review the list of exhibitors, and identify who I want to meet with. But here's the kicker. 2 weeks out, I'm going to reach out to those people. I'm going to go find their names, numbers, emails. I'm going to go find them on LinkedIn. I'm going to reach out to them and try to connect on LinkedIn. Say, hey, I'm going to Navy Gold Coast. I'm excited to meet you there. Can we connect? If you're open, I like to say, if you're open to it, I'd love to connect with you here on LinkedIn, right? So the first thing I'm trying to do is to find all those people. What's your purpose for going to the conference? For me, it's always networking. Sorry, I got a little gnat here. It's driving me nuts. But going to the conference, right? It's really important to be able to meet people for me. And so I want to identify those people early, and then I want to reach out to them and see if I can establish a connection ahead of time. I've got 2 weeks out, and maybe you can even start 3 or 4 weeks out. You really start early, and you can have a chance to engage. The next thing I would highly recommend you do is post content. I know I put twice daily, and I know it sounds like a lot, but it really is not that much. You could do something as simple as reposting content on LinkedIn, right? So if I went to LinkedIn and I found a piece of content, let me see if I can do it really quick. LinkedIn. So let's see how fast live works for me. If I go to LinkedIn, I'm going to say I'm looking for Navy Gold Coast. And I'm just hitting that. We'll see what we get. And so I'm going to hit post right here. It's yay, I come up first. So if I come down, right, here's NAVFAC and Naval Facility Systems Command. And if I come in here, they're talking about what they're doing. Bianca Henderson's going to moderate a panel down there talking about it. And so I can do a couple of things, right? I can engage this content. See how nobody made a comment. I could put a comment going, bummed I'm going to miss this. Let me know if you're going or something. Let me know your favorite, what do I say? What your favorite outcome from the event. Something like that, right? And I'm commenting, right? Now I'm the only person who commented on the NAVFAC post, and they're really small, actually. They have 793 followers, but I'm in their world, right? The other thing I could do if I was feeling generous is I could repost right here, right? So if I just repost it out, I repost it instantly. Don't bother adding a comment. You never want to add a comment because you break the chain. If I repost without a comment, like this bottom one, then it brings all of my network back to the Navy here. And that's good. That's just good social engagement. So I'm going to repost. It just reposted it out onto my profile. It took me that long. And so when I say in here, post content twice daily, it's not a big lift, especially if you're in sales. That's pretty much a full-time job. And the last thing is what I just showed you, engage with related content, right? So I got on there and I put a comment. That's what I mean by engaging. I might go in there and literally look for those exhibitors, et cetera, and see if they're posting, hey, we're going to the event, we're excited. This is networking. Sales is about networking and talking to people. And so you can go out there and find them 30 minutes a day, an hour a day. If you're going to the conference and you want success, then plan for success. A lack of planning will guarantee the opposite. Okay, so let's talk about maximizing your time at the event. One of the first things I said before, and I'm going to say it again, when you go into an event, you really need to know, why are we going there? What am I going there to get done? My objective. And so the answer could be two main things with Navy Gold Coast. I'm going there to learn from their sessions and their events, or I'm going there to network. I never personally go to an event to learn. There's all sorts of ways to learn, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. But networking is the only reason I might go there, is meet people I might not meet otherwise. Most importantly, to meet people I would never have thought to meet with, right? If I know who to meet with, I'll just pick up the phone and call them. But if I want to go somewhere and meet all sorts of just new group of people because I'm doing business development, trying to do a broader reach, that's my purpose. But the reason you do that is it allows you to do the next thing, planning your sessions and planning your exhibits. If I go back and I show you the sessions that are in here, what I want you to do is look at these sessions, and as you come down, and I'm going to scroll pretty fast. I want to go down to some of the more meaty ones. Let me get a little bit further. Okay. So if I come in here, I don't care about the welcomes. None of those things matter. I mean, to me, they don't, no offense, but like I only have so much time. I want to pay attention to it. Like this person here, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy coming in, they're a political appointee. They're not going to say anything that is like going to change what you're doing in contracting. They might change something with Booz Allen, but for small businesses, no. But when I start coming down, even this SBA administrator, there's no reason to ever listen to what she says, because none of it really is applying to us small businesses. That's when I would be at the exhibitors talking or having one-off meetings that I'm doing. But here, small business panel, this might be good because these people are talking about how you can engage with their agency. So I might say, hey, I really want that event. But you saw what I did, right? I go through and I say, which ones do I like? I'm not trying to determine your schedule. I'm just saying you want to go in there and plan your sessions based on what's important to you and what you value. And do the same thing with the exhibits. Look at the exhibits and say, which ones are the top priority? Because I want you to plan the hours that you spend at the event. You need to triage all of the exhibitors and say, there's 100 exhibitors. These 10 are my tier one, must get in there, must build relationships, must have a follow-on coming out of it. These 30 or something could be my tier 2, and the rest of them are my tier 3 or high, medium, and low priorities. And the reason this is important, people often go to conferences and they'll just walk aisles. That's totally cool to do in the third hour. In the first 5 minutes when you get there, you go to the most important booth, then the second most important booth. And I don't care if the booth is here and over here. Don't rationalize it by saying, well, I'm going to go to booth 1 and then booth 7 because it's on its way. No. Booth 1 is the priority, and then booth 2 is the priority. Get over there. You want to meet those people fresh. I'm not talking about it too much today, but I've done a lot of other training about this where you want to meet them and then you want to come back maybe an hour later, and then you want to come back several hours later and say, hey, I'm just following up. Whatever it is, you don't want to bug them, but you want to take advantage of many of the people who work booths have a lot of downtime. And if you can catch them, you can begin to have conversations. But the first thing to do is to get in there and meet with them. And this goes into my second or this bullet, the fourth bullet. Don't sell. When you're at a conference and you're working the exhibitors in particular, no one's going to buy from you. No one. And so you don't want to sell. What you're there for is to get a commitment to have a meeting later. Hey, Booz Allen, even if you're trying to go after a large, it's great to talk to you guys. We're trying to get into the Air Force, or we do some stuff with the Air Force. We're trying to expand. We would love to work with you guys where you might participate on our stuff. We participate on yours. Whatever it is you say, hey, I get the conference is crazy. Would we be able to get together for a 30-minute meeting, right, to talk about some of the opportunities and the direction we're going? Would you be willing to do that? No one is going to stand there talking to you and say no flat out. They will say one of two things for the most part. They'll say, sure, sounds good. Let's connect after the conference, right? And then the second thing they might say is, well, that's not really me. My colleague so-and-so does it. If they're nice, they'll make an introduction. They'll send an email. They'll give you the name, number, and email address. If they're not nice, they'll just tell you Sally Smith does it, right? And that's fine as well. But what you're trying to do is just get a commitment for a meeting. You're trying to get a follow-up, and that's when the relationship begins to start being built. If you come back a couple of times, and on those top priority ones, you'll really be able to build the visibility of you to them. The last thing is just make sure that it's okay to be able to connect with them on LinkedIn. It's my favorite thing to do. If you have business cards, fine, but people often run out of them and it's just running around. But modern selling is on LinkedIn. People are on LinkedIn, and even the people who are less engaged on LinkedIn are coming onto LinkedIn as they see federal buyers are on here. And so just ask them, hey, do you mind if I connect with you on LinkedIn? And if they say fine, and it's not overly crowded, go, cool, pull out your phone and connect with them right there. Is that you? Yeah. All right. I sent you a connection request, right? And just connect with them. There's so much to be said for having a LinkedIn connection that enables you now to do so much more going forward. You're a first connection, no longer a second or a third. Last thing I want you to remember at maximizing your event, and I got this from my mentor, Zig Ziglar, who I never met, but in sales, he mentored me forever. Don't go to the evening stuff. Don't go to happy hours or any of that extra stuff. Almost always you're hanging out with your friends, but you're at a conference for work. This is the time to go back and call your family. If you got a family, this is the time to go back and take all those business cards and get them into your CRM now, not when you go back to the office. This is the time to send those LinkedIn connections. This is the time to get rest and come back first thing in the morning, just fired up, full of energy, so that you can keep maximizing your ROI from the event. Highly encourage you not to sit there and do any of that happy hour stuff. I know it's counter, but this is not for fun. This is for work, and you're there to build relationships, right? Okay. The last tip I want to give you the last few minutes, and this one's a big deal because this is one I do a lot. If I can't go to a conference, it's no big deal. I'll still be able to get out of that conference as much as anybody who goes to it. And it's just because of how I do this, right? And so similar to what I said earlier, I would look at the conference and I go, who are the people I wish I could meet? These speakers or these exhibitors. I might try to find some of the exhibitors and see if I see them out on LinkedIn talking about they're going to the event. But then I'm going to reach out to them and try to get a meeting. Hey, I'm not going to be at that meeting. I'm not going to be at Gold Coast, but I know you're going to be there. Any chance we can get 15 minutes for a quick intro call, right? But I'm using Navy Gold Coast because I know they're going to it. I just saw them on that, and I'm reaching out to them to try to get in. And so you don't even have to go to the event. You can just look at the event's details, find the speakers, find the exhibitors, and to be able to reach out. The other tip I really love is reaching out to last year's speakers or picking people randomly. So the first one, just last year's speakers. If I come in here, I can look right here and see 2023 presentations, right? If I come in here and I'm looking at last year's events, let me zoom in for a second. And I come down here, right here, doing business with MDA, right? That sounds really good. That's what I want to do. If I click on this, I'm seeing the slides and I'm seeing the Director of Technology Maturation. I don't know who that is, but say that I do and I want to meet that person, then I'm able to just reach out to them. And I didn't even check this ahead of time, but I'm curious if they actually, hold on, I'm just going to the bottom really quick. How cool would it be if they said, okay, well, they're saying reach out to the cyber industry folks, but at least you're in there. More importantly, though, I can find that person I just saw. Now I've got a name and I can say, hey, I'm going to Navy Gold Coast, but I saw I missed you last year. Any chance I can get 15 minutes to do, have a quick call? And then the other one, and this is one of my favorite ones, is you can look to anybody, because this is a Navy event, you can look to anybody in the Navy, whether they're going or not. Most importantly, you don't even know that they're going. I can reach out and say, hey, Sally, who's the director of IT or something, director of chief data officer. I can say, hey, Sally, I'm not going to be at Navy Gold Coast this year. And if you're going to be there, I'm going to miss you. And so I'm sorry, I'm going to miss you. Any chance I can connect with you offline? And Sally will come back and often like, I'm not going to that either. It's like, oh, cool. So then can we meet offline? It's a tactic, right? There's nothing wrong with it, because what I'm saying is that my email is, I'm not going to be at the Gold Coast, so I'm afraid I'm going to miss you if you're going to be there. Can we have a meeting? It's just an icebreaker way of saying Navy Gold Coast. Everybody in the Navy in any kind of leadership role is tracking on this. Whether they go or not, they know that this event is happening. It's a big Navy push to the small business community. And so they're aware of these things that are just flying around. If you use that as an icebreaker, it's kind of like using the Super Bowl. We call it long tail marketing. You're just borrowing the Navy Gold Coast energy to try to get into a meeting with somebody in the Navy. Here's what I want you to remember from today. And by the way, I have a whole bunch of training. I have newsletter articles that lay out like 5-6 trainings on going to a conference. So I've done a ton of these that you can go watch. But from today's training in particular, just remember, you want to start out at least 2 weeks in advance. Start planning your success. Remember, failing to plan is planning to fail. And so if you start getting a plan in place, you're really increasing your chances for success. The second thing I want you to remember is to move with a purpose when you're at the event. You get into the event, you go, don't say hi to all the friends and people that are there. Go to the booths that are most important to you. Your friends will be there the whole day, right? Go to those booths, get in there early. They'll run out of material, etc. But move with a purpose at the event. And then the last thing is, don't think that just because you're not going, you can't do anything. Not attending an event can sometimes be an advantage, because you don't have to pay to go. You don't have to spend all that time traveling there and back, but you can sit there and zero in on the people you want to meet and then reach out and talk to them. If you found value of today's training, do me a favor, say conferences rock in the chat. Let me know. And then also, if you're going to Navy Gold Coast, let me know that as well. I'd be curious on who's going. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, because that's where we're going to put out a lot of good content. We'll probably put more of it related to this out there. Tomorrow's training, go ahead and register for that training. As you move forward, it's about networking on LinkedIn. And the last thing is, if you're interested in working with us, we have a BD Accelerator workshop. It is for companies over $1 million, right? So if you go to our site and you apply and you're doing under $1 million, I'm probably not going to accept it, because I need you to be at a certain stage to be able to move forward. But it's a 90-day workshop. And if you have an interest in learning more about that, just put workshop in the chat. Otherwise, just keep coming back to the training. We love it when you're here. I like looking around the room and seeing everybody. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.